Alright folks, welcome back. Technically it's not reset day, today is Tuesday. However, this is our last week. Week 10, we've come to the end of module 31. There's a lot to be said about this, so I'll say it kind of near the end. Not entirely sure if this is an auspicious time to hop in, but module 31 was the trial module, right? But before we do that, let's wrap up our stuff. I've been keeping up, but I've been doing it in the background. So we've done at least one character run on each of these characters, right? In their tank paragons, and then whichever one I prefer. Also, I've been keeping up all three characters despite my reservations about streaming and covering most of it. Typically I have time to do 3, but in this case I think the way they structured, maybe with the recent change with the weekly currency, I hope that stays the same. 25 is quite generous, 20 was sufficient what was available before, but I think that was a blatant oversight. I think, in my opinion, one of the lowest points is that those who typically play a certain amount of time as opposed to a certain number of characters, I think some of the stuff is pretty misguided and other concerning things, which I'll cover in a bit. But let's do our victory lap now. Which character? I'm just gonna do one character today. I think the way the repeatables are designed and the world events, and then you just stack it on with the trials, it leaves a lot to be desired. I think this time around there is far less substance for me personally, and we'll go over that in a little bit. Currently the July 4th event is happening. Is the week of July 4th. You do like celebrations with fireworks and whatnot. We'll use our paladin because it's the most reliable one I have, and we'll go through our last 100. Do we have activities available to us? We do. So this will go fairly quick. And no Tenebra or Orloth, Teneboroth, or something like that. Okay, alright. Let's get into it. Do it quick, then I will commence with some final words. Right. For yet another module. So let's see. So we're gonna get the 25 from the activities. That should, I think, progress for activities should go up, in my opinion, in order to not overstay the redundancy. I think here's the thing. Which the ratio in which you would get someone to complete 10 weeks, is that worth increasing the volume of repetition throughout the week? I would say I disagree. If they are considering the idea that, oh, we should up the time per day as opposed to how long someone to follow through at the loss, the way the payment has been working, like the currency in this one, I think it's incredibly misguided. But I think I have some conjectures as to why it's different this time around, which I'll talk about in a bit. It might be management. You know, management did technically change. Not sure if this module was planned when the management was changed, but it often, this module felt hang on, there's a guy here. Just honestly, Design, the level themselves, designs were great. I think there's not much to say that I find very auspicious about this module. So it's gonna be a little bit of a Debbie Downer. Like cure zombie stags is one of the pretty meh. Cure zombie stags is pretty meh. Wow, amazing. So of all the one other person, right? One other person here, it had to be a person that's doing the exact quest I'm doing. That's why I dislike this quest. Like, of the one person, they're clearly doing the exact same thing. These quests are incredibly toxic in design in general, and thankfully I'm a tank, so that gives me an advantage. So that guy can just roam around. Oh, actually, they just left. So, like this stuff. This one isn't like the worst. It's not an F tier, but it's good enough to be annoying. It's good enough to be annoying. I don't know if they intended this, but you can't be interrupted by, as long as you're close enough, you can't be interrupted. So that works for being a tank. They can keep hitting you, but the progress doesn't reset. Usually that's not intended, but I'm using it to my advantage. Right. That's a silver lining. I think that's a silver lining. Yeah, see, it's quicker. It's quicker just to take yourself out and then spawn nearby. Personally, if you're doing that in your game, I don't know. Does that mean it's working as intended? I don't think so, right? You know, you gotta do what you gotta do, man. I do it quick. All right, so we have 25, 25, 75 plus 5, that's 80. And then we have to do 4 repeatables. This will probably be 3 on the first run. Oh, just jump all the way down. Yeah, overall, I think there's an aggression, a design that thought increasing the average amount of time and the average amount of repetitions will increase value or like sentiments about gear and whatnot. And I disagree probably with a lot of I find myself at odds with how other people rationalize, like, if something is rare and you spend a lot of time on it, that it boosts the legacy or the value and desirability of the thing. I think it's a backwards type of rationale for where the state of Neverwinter is. More options, different ways to play is heavily more favored from my perspective. So if you're gonna increase gatekeeping on gear because it's somehow rare and you make it even more exclusive, that's not in my I have a conflict of interest with that. It might not be the same conflict of interest that other people have, so inevitably that means that my interest fades with it. Not that my interest potentially represents other players or not, but continuously catering to the privilege of people who already have privileges. That just means you're going into maintenance. You're maintaining, not growing. And honestly, if for me, if a game is not actively thinking that they're wanting to grow, then the game is reaching an end cycle. That's doing just good enough or stopping and maintaining the status quo, and I don't find that exciting. There was a time I was excited for, well, I had been in the last couple like modules been pretty excited because the direction seemed to suggest that they would lean heavier on being approachable, right? Accessible. But no, we're back to doing rarity increases, more exclusivity increases. There's no price tag behind them, so that's nice. I mean, that's kind of expected of the history of Neverwinter. So at least it's not. I've been playing Phantom X, so the dialogue of gotcha comes up all the time. At least the power creep is not motivated by monetary gains, but at the same time, it is also that type of. It may not necessarily be power creep, but limiting accessibility means that they're, in my opinion, it speaks that it's not in the interest of doing something different or growing the game anymore, but largely to maintain the game. And whoever leaves is like, okay, this is too much of the same thing now. Only now everything is rare, and that somehow would increase playtime. It may increase playtime for sure for those who are there, and it will naturally never be more, right? Kazuhiro went pretty well. You left to get some dinner. What's for dinner? What was for dinner? Pretty. So, this game, right? Like, the current module speaks to me that they're going to squeeze out playtime by introducing increasing rarities in the future. And that means that the net, in my opinion, that makes it so that likely the net number of players will be lower. However, that would be compensated by the increased time of those who are privileged that are just going to stay in the game. Leftover chicken Alfredo with sugar snap peas from the other night. Ah, nice, nice. It almost sounds like food prepping. So that's probably going to be the theme of my end credit, like end talk today when I finish up this Tunes weekly haul. The vibe or the message I'm getting from the design choices now is that it's not one of we're going to try to change the direction in order to increase its appeal. We're going to maintenance mode and squeezing as much lifetime out of it using, in my opinion, rationality that caters to people who are already going to play the game and continue to play the game regardless if rarity goes up or not. And those individuals do not like care too much. It's not in their prerogative or interest to attempt to grow the game or see that the game continues to change, because they're more like conserving, right? Conservation. I'm not like this game. I'm not in the conservation state of mind. I think it requires some leadership that will take chances, that is imbued in change, not an escalation of what hasn't obviously worked in terms of modern expectations, I suppose, contemporary expectations. conservation embraces maintaining the status quo. So that's what they did, this module. It was okay. Not for me, but for others. I was reading like public, you know, most of the conversation has moved to the Discord. So now you can like look at Discord reactions and stuff. And it's sufficient that the old guard, the people who are already playing the game and stuff, are satisfied with the idea that they themselves continue to have access to the content without necessarily needing any incentive or requirement for things to interestingly change in Neverwinter. And I think that to me speaks of developer stagnation and or developers who simply want to maintain a game, which is fair, which we'll be talking about. I theorize that maybe this is the first module that the development it changed hands, right? There has been a lot of talk or some official announcements that Dika is helming most of the things, and whatever remains of Cryptic used. Oh, I didn't even take the quest. Whatever remains of Cryptic was integrated and or absorbed by Dika, right? So now what does that group maintain, or like what is the philosophy behind that group? And this might be an example of the change in direction, right? I think this was probably the least accessible module in the last 3 modules. Just tells you that there's a chance that there might have been a managerial change or a directional change, and to me it's not a change that requires me to increase investments. It actually decreases my investment. I'm not interested in covering, or I'm less and less interested in higher repetition because you have less staff to make stuff, and higher repetition due to bootstrapping the same concepts. And I kind of want to see new I'm more interested personally to see new leadership and unique takes on a live service D&D game. Oh, and it can happen with this, right? But it didn't. What they did was more rare loot, more rare like scaling, less and less like sidelining accessibility, make things less and less accessible in order to like, I don't know, raise the challenge, I suppose. The challenge of things. Less content. I'm okay with that. If you have to make less content because of resource, that makes sense, right? Increasing how the value or the playtime of that limited content, I'm not for that, because I think however much the content is, as a live service model, people play those live service things and then they play other things and wait for the next update. So the idea of volume of content is not necessarily my concern for this game, largely because it's accepted that this game's a newcomer would think the volume of this game is quite generous, because this game has been around for 12 plus years. However, trying to consistently put out volume because your major group wants volume, right? Your major group wants volume and they want challenging volume and stuff. That doesn't necessarily guarantee that your game continues to grow or auspiciously change. What happens is you maintain whoever is still there, and if you make it too rare or challenging, then those people leave. So you guarantee that the game becomes less approachable from, like, if D&D releases something nice or something interesting, like a new Netflix show perhaps, the people who play this game, and like people who may be interested in saying, oh yeah, I want to play a like D&D Forsaken Realm like context game. Well, it's not Neverwinter anymore, in my opinion, because it's very inaccessible. All the new stuff, the existing stuff is pretty fine, and then eventually the thing you would be, I would say, is, well, the later stuff is not accessible because if you're not in on the inn already, it's kind of too late for that, right? Whatever remains are people who are very, very comfortable with their status, uh, whatever status that is, their privileged status. They don't have to start over, reset, or ever relearn anything, right? It's business as usual. And then what does that get them? They do the same business as usual to get, and then they do it even more often in order to get coveted things. That is dull. It is very dull to me personally. I mean, others may choose to disagree, but I want to be doing different things, not making them rarer and expecting to do them more often in order to get some sort of feeling of reward. Like labor is one thing. Consistent labor, I'm for that. Like I don't mind doing, like I'm doing these things, right? Each week I like to do my weeklies and dailies. However, despite all of that, the things that are of value that they spend and invest, well, at least for this module, that they spend and invest a lot of their time in is something that I don't even have access to, largely because of time, the time frame and whatnot. Like the trials, you just don't, right? And that means it's a hard pass. The highlight or whatever they're selling as the highlight of this module is something I don't even interact with. Yeah, and what more can you say about that other than it looks good, it looks like it's fun, but you make content that constantly panders, make content constantly pandering and making it exclusive over and over again as though that creates value. Here's my thought about it. There are a lot of lone wolves that can find value in themselves, and I like that there are quite a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, that's okay. I don't need other people to know that I did this. I'm doing this for my own satisfaction. That's fair, right? That works in a video game if it was single player. There's all this talk about being team players, and then the same people would make the comments about, oh yeah, no, it's easy because you just have to organize a group. People are just lazy at organizing groups. It takes lazy people who don't care about other people to say that about themselves, or to say that about other people. It's the pot calling the kettle black. And the way it's designed in this game, it doesn't incentivize to help other people or start things. There's no incentive to be forming groups and being in groups. There are games where the bigger the group, the bigger the loot. The bigger the group, the more challenge scaled is the group. So like having a scalar trial would be interesting too. Like a 369, and they would scale proportionally to the contribution. There are, I can think of various ways that I don't think it would be like philosophically difficult to scale the stuff. That's how they tune these trials, by the way. They tune them by tuning the properties of, in case outside of bug fixing and whatnot. So having an incentive to form different size groups and being in different size groups can be part of the design. But that's not the case here. It's prescribed. You need to meet a certain group. You need to meet a certain minimum requirement. Other than that, if you're outside of it, which is fairly high, anyone who's relatively new, or even those who cannot see themselves constantly being prescribed to know when to get on, how like running hundreds of times, and that threshold is constantly climbing higher and higher, and their rationale for it, or at least the perceived rationale for it by veterans or people, is that increased rarity is the incentive to play more. That may work if there was people who are incentive, an increased amount of people incentivized to do that in the first place. No, instead it's this narrow comment that only applies to those who aren't interested in being inclusive for a game, right? Yeah, I agree with you. If it takes like thousands of times to get a piece of gear, that's great. And if you're a loner, that must be sufficient to make you feel good about stuff. Always doing it with the people around you, that's great. You guys have that inward network of satisfaction, but I don't think it's appropriate for a live service game, because what it does, in my opinion, is once it becomes old enough, you're either obligated to do it, you obligate yourself to do it, or people leave. And I don't mean like they leave in droves or anything. It's largely due to complacency, where like, oh, you know, I don't want to do this again. How much is too much? Like, so if they're continuously heading to adding more and more rarity to their things, then honestly, for myself, I'm more and more inclined to spend less and less time. That's kind of why I feel whoever says the whole rarity thing leads to more game time, leads to heavier incentive to try harder or try longer. Do not take this, us, like me and those individuals disagree on what makes live service. So like, for example, it would be the same as saying, hey, people need to eat. So if we only serve incredibly rare meat that is extremely expensive, people are more likely going to spend more time eating frequently at our establishment. That is the analogy I'm trying to portray here. That's what Neverwinter is going for in this module. Like, oh, you have to earn the privilege to meet the minimum standard. So if you don't have a nice suit and several stacks of pretend money, which is time, and then gear that gives you a punch card into the content, then you would want to do that because it's some sort of exclusive club, right? You want to get into it. The last time I checked, when you think about live service stuff, like especially people who are doing it habitually, they don't first aim at the country club. Like, oh yeah, I I really want to get into the country club, and I heard that the country club has like super expensive stuff, super coveted stuff, and they really like it with each other. But those people in the country club, they don't interact with other people outside most of the time. In fact, I would say a little bit of a contentious remark here. It's comments that makes like, oh, the rarer, the more desirable it is. That's what happens in the country club. It doesn't happen outside when people are trying to look if they want to participate in the country club. When they hear, oh man, I wonder if I can get in the country club. Here's the baseline, and it's raising every year. You have less people interested. You're more selective. But those who do enter will have a fine time, right? Have a fine time because they have resources already. While being in the country club, which I'm not anymore, or I don't even think I ever were, I don't rationalize for rare things, because no matter how rare it gets, who are you interacting with? Like, I don't want to sit there and interact with the same people. Like, mind you, it's a very different story when it comes to video games. I prefer to have more opportunities to interact with other people, not people of the same mind or the same creative things. So yeah, I am drifting away. Actually, I drifted away, far away from the inner Neverwinter community for some time ago. Oh, and here's the 10th thing. So we get a box of 100 Astro Diamonds, but I'm pretty sure this is a one-time get. Maybe not. But we completed. There it is. The Red Harvest on one of our characters. We'll do it another I'll do it another 2 times off stream. But now we're just going to conclude on the thoughts that I had going into it. Right. So let's find a decent place to get a screen cap. Maybe the district over here. And then I will finish off the idea. I quite like this area. This area is pretty nice. Oh, you know what? I know exactly. Actually, this area is not bad. Can I stand here? Being okay? Okay. So we're wrapping up today. That's it. After the weekly change, right? After the weekly currency change, it's very agreeable. But they did it on the 8th week. So in my opinion, it's a little too late for me to redact or retract my statement. It's great that they went back and changed the weekly payout. But most of my other criticisms, in my opinion, are still a thing. So at the moment, Cryptic / Dika, and I'm probably just going to refer to them as Dika now. So during this transition, I do not know if it's clear if this module is when the leadership changed or the group changed. There has been a change of hands. Maybe whatever remains of Cryptic has been integrated into Dika, but the main management and stuff and direction and maybe leadership has changed, and this might have impacted the module's direction. So with that in mind, I actually had a very favorable impression from the last 3 modules, which may have came before the leadership change. So let's say in a transitioning period, this is a reflection of the new direction for this game. And what I feel about this direction is that Neverwinter has 2 things facing it. And it's kind of a which one is more detrimental in catering to, because you can't satisfy everything, right? That's kind of the very nature of things. So do you want this game to be live service, right? Pro live service, or do you want this game to be pro legacy? Live service games are built, their way of building, like the modernization, the contemporary building of live service is conceptually very different from what the direction of this game is catering to. So I was talking about P5X, right? The new gacha game that I was playing recently, as well as I make references as PSO2 NGS. And the idea is live service embraces power creep, but they make object permanence by making the things that you collect and acquire static or transformative, like some sort of collectathon kind of thing. Free to play games, live service games, gacha, those things that rely on some form of baseline microtransaction, the objects that you collect, which there is a lot in this game, you collect mounts and all that stuff, they tend to be functionally displayable and shareable in order to elevate the exposure of the game. This game does not do that. It continuously have to make a choice that the new things you collect or the things you are sought after have a functional purpose that is the whole aspect of the game, right? So if you get gear, it's the aspect of getting the gear, whether it's displayed or not. The closest thing you can get is a character, it looks like it, that's fine. And then, you know, the mount, you can see the mount. And those are the things that do cater to live service. Like, oh yeah, this is a really neat mount. Let's go back and play the game. I want this mount, right? But there's an element of this functionality, like stats, rarity, value, you know, digital value. And the rarity aspect is what I'm kind of fixated on for this outro. And that's the idea that this module, the direction they're going is to amplify the rarity of the thing you want to collect or use. So it's the essence of all of it. So what I mean is, if it becomes rarer to get the thing you're collecting or want to use as a form of progress in both the aspect of the live service game and that old school Neverwinter mindset, then in my opinion, the live service model fails to do that. Like, unless they're transitioning. So my thought is, what the heck? How did it disengage? Okay. Somehow I got placed into battle nonchalantly. Okay. Here they have introduced a new tier rarity of gear, right? And that gear occupies all the slots that traditionally would be accessible to everyone, right? So when you do that, I'm gonna say something very unpopular, but oftentimes you make that gear accessible by either paying money for it, accessing it somewhere else, and or committing your time to it. That balances out the accessibility issue about live service models, right? If someone sits here and say, I like to keep up to date with this game, and then you look at it, oh, there's only one way to access this gear. You have to collectively play a certain way, meet a certain bottom line, and then, you know, work out with other people, and then repeatedly do the same thing to a point where everyone else is comfortable with doing it, who have access to that. But every other player would say, no, that's too much time. It's like, honestly, I would just pay for the gear to stay up to date at this rate. My time can be used to get money to pay your game and get the gear. Now, this would then cheapen the value of that gear according to those who spend hours getting them. That's not true, because that value is captured by the money now. So when it comes to free to play and live service models, if you increase rarity, it also retains it in different ways. How much is 100 hours of bootstrapping through the same trial worth to someone? Probably like $15 to get that gear. Like, and then if you put that on the store, there are gonna be reasonable number of people that would offset and say, well, it's not worth running $100, but at least I would pay something for it in order to stay current, to have an even higher chance of playing your game again, right? And that there's a drawback to all of this. Some people will see the game as pay to win. Fair enough. Or pay to get the gear. Fair enough. They would say, the people who are playing would say, well, that would cheapen the value. No, because it already get an injection of that value. Things go down because money went in, right? So you have to look at it as the net worth of the gear. So for now, though, it's one way or the highway. So for me, if you don't have access to the gear, then it's irrelevant how rare the gear is and how much you think the rarity is. You and your friends, the people in the country club, will know that they have bragging rights to each other. However, that circle continues to be smaller and smaller until the rarity drives people away. And then that's kind of the small circle that you have, right? And the direction of this game is supporting that. Let's maintain the country club and end membership, right? End membership. So let's continue to design and maintain whatever is left of the game and its population, and continue to cater to that group, raising the rarity amongst themselves so their competition is inward. It's not competing for, this game will stop and cease to compete for other people's attention, which is fair, right? That tells me that the game is at its end cycle. That's how I would interpret it. They are satisfied with maintaining whatever exists and then continuing to reach an end cycle. So if you introduce celestial gear, you're going to introduce no more better than that celestial gear. So whatever the next module is, they might choose other slots, maybe celestial companion gear, and then that'll be it for that. And then they'll introduce, so object permanence. In order to preserve the value that you put in, all of the things will reach its final state. As in, there will be no more gear in order to retain the value of the gear. And then you move on. And then you continue that until there is nothing in the current subsystem that is new anymore. It's at its peak. Then maybe they'll introduce a new subsystem. But for me, I think one of the bottom lines that would indicate that Dika/Cryptic have any means of trying to have another 10 years or something like that would be that they introduce a new subsystem, whatever that subsystem is, or a new way to engage with the game that isn't behind an accessibility wall. Like new celestial gear as a trade-off, even sacrificing the celestial gear, in my opinion, I'm a bit biased, would be more interesting than bootstrapping on the same thing. Making more trials, making them harder, tiering them consistently, but constantly spending nearly all of your efforts to tweaking with diminished return. That's the choice that they made. Creating a new tier of gear as opposed to creating a different tier of gear which everyone has accessible to, right? Like introducing a new slot in the gear is very different than tiering up the gear. That's a great analogy I can make to a gacha game is the gacha games that destroyed their own reputation immediately after having a successful land. Like a game where, oh, okay, we're satisfied now. We have 1 stars to 5-star gear. The coveted gear is 5 stars, right? And you know, you have a gacha system, because we're going to use the gacha system as a reflection of, instead of thinking about it as time invested, we'll think of it as money invested. That's a little bit more intuitive. Say tier 5. Tier 5 has a specific probability of dropping and getting from a gacha pack. Now imagine 3 or 4 years down the line, someone says, oh, okay, we're introducing tier 6 star gacha, and all of your 5 stars, they're no longer relevant. Everyone leaves the game. Well, not everyone, but maybe like 60 to 70% of the players will leave the game, because you destroyed the value of the live service component, the free service, like free to play component, because you made them functionally irrelevant, and you diminished, you replaced those things, and you introduce a new tier, and it deals with increased playtime. So for Neverwinter is increased playtime, which is money. It's another form of value, currency, right? Time is currency, or yeah, time is currency, but it's easier to think of it as money. Think of the time you make with that money, and that's what this module has demonstrated to me. Instead of introducing more features or like a subsystem, or even changing an existing subsystem, like change how companions work. Back in the like maybe the last 10 modules, there had been 2 or 3 subsystem changes, and I'm gonna be real, it created a lot of division. It was very divisive, but I haven't heard more Neverwinter chatter than those times where they're like, hey guys, we're gonna change how stats work, and it just blew up. Everyone had opinions. There were a lot of conflicts. People were yelling at each other, but people were playing, and they were constantly in like talking and chatting about how to do things, right? So the system got changed. Systems got changed, and it's still accessible to everyone. Not this time. Not this time. This time, the game decided we're going to add another tier. So everything's going to stay the same, but we're just going to tier up everything and make all the game time higher. It went from the top to the bottom. Trials took long. Like, trials are more exclusive. They were probably over tweaked for specific people. And then because of the new tier system, they wanted to change and reduce they thought that things would become too easy to get. So they revamped how reroll tokens and loot is distributed, just so that the celestial gear is rare. If you don't have any more players to get them, it doesn't matter how rare it is. If your design has become so intrinsically redundant and repetitious, your gear is rare by default, not rare because it's sought after. So there is so much more, there is such a leap of logic and logical fallacy that I read when someone says, oh yeah, you can increase the rarity because that's how you retain the value. When no one demands it, it doesn't retain any value. Like, you have to have the demand first before it has a value. When your population is filled with sellers and not buyers, then you can place any value. It's a moot point. You can call it, it's worth 50 million because no one has it. It's like, good for you, because no one wants it, right? That's kind of the thing. So that is my, like, I don't want to leave it at that kind of remark, but that's kind of how all the design of this module feels like in the currency manner, or the manner of time. Make things longer. It's not makes things like, it's stretching out content, increasing rarity, because somehow demand is going to increase playtime. The obligatory playtime is obligatory, so I concede on that. I had to put in the time to complete the currency, despite my objections to how many times you have to do the same thing. And in that way, they did take it back and increase the amount of like trickling currency and weekly currency. That's obligatory. So that will inevitably be negative no matter what. The trials is a moot point because those who don't play trials or masters and stuff will continue to not do that. And that is, they're content with that because they continue to design this same thing, right? The same thing over and over again on the tier system. Those who continue to play masters will continue to get everything, like to get those things, and those who continue, so nothing has changed. So that's good, right? If it still works, it works. This time though, most of the things that still work are all, in most of it in my opinion, are designs that are negative for a live service game. It's positive for a game that they're just going to squeeze it out until it's gone. So I would not be surprised if this direction continues, that I guess I would say goodbye to Neverwinter. Maybe when it closes down officially sometime down the road, I will make like a comment about it or something like that. But it's been tough. This module has been pretty confusing. I really was able to be pretty bright and optimistic about, oh yeah guys, just jump into the game, like you can do this, you can do this, you can even spend like 3 weeks and then you'll be experiencing this module. And now my thought is, well, you see this, you see like all that gear, I mean, I think I play fairly frequently this game, but I can't even be interested in it. And meanwhile, patch notes after patch notes deal with the exclusivity of the gear. Like, well, yeah, it's exclusive and it looks appealing to like all the people that are concerned with it, which might be the majority of the remaining Neverwinter players, but it certainly doesn't appeal to me. And what's even more telling is that's what's being advertised on the site. Like, hey, look guys, look at our new even rarer gear tier. It's like, yay, more things that are unrealistically inflated. That's asking someone in a gacha, in like in a live service game, like, aren't you guys excited? Our next big patch are things that are going to be inaccessible to you. 90% chance they're going to be inaccessible to you. Aren't you getting excited about the game? Logically speaking, if that's what that happens, I leave the game. And I don't think that's true for Neverwinter, by the way. I just think it's going in that direction. Some of the stuff is saying that. Like, I only cover the things that are accessible, obviously. Some people would argue, oh, well, you just need to start a group, arrange a group so you can do trials. Those are individuals who have a different schedule, they have different availabilities, and they are incredibly privileged in the things that they are so used to thinking that forming groups and finding players on at the same time during a specific time is normal. And that's the type of player that is very loud and also representative of the current country club people. And in my opinion, that's where they're going to get their feedback. So I don't blame them for catering to the majority. I actually think the majority, a lot, like it's over there, a certain time frame. But man, it is tough to say, hey, oh yeah, come on over, join me on Neverwinter, we can start a group and do stuff. Like, no, that is not something I can comfortably say. There's no form of like rose-colored goggles or statistics or objective truths behind that. There's very few converging evidence that would suggest that the developers want new players to play this game. It's very few and in between. So I usually make these recordings for my own posterity, much like the Country Club peeps, right? I play this game. I just want to show that this game still exists. It's fun to some extent. I have a lot of legacy with this game. I want to see where it goes, for better or for worse. So I will probably be back for module 32 to see how my opinion has changed with a new direction. I believe the content, the map is wonderful, as per usual. So it's like, I think this map and it's like mainline writing, right, is above average. It's like a 6 or 7 out of 10, above average. And everything else that I can think of that I mentioned over the last 10 streams is below average. Repeatables, below average, but not that much. It's relatively average. So there are some stinkers that feel like they're kind of out of touch with how characters interact with things, and then there are really big highlights. There are really big stinkers, like the constant forcing of party play in the zone. So all the zone things are increasing in party play, but the party play stuff do not incentivize party play, nor do they lead to accessibility for more party play. So like, yeah, sure, you can constantly get together to make assassin groups because you have to take out assassins, which then you need to form those groups, will coalesce into groups to take down Tenebroloth, right, stuff. And then hopefully that leads to the trials being more proliferated with groups. But there is a lower limit to all of that. If you're playing during this time or any other time outside of the main traffic times, then those are the only time. Those are the times that you want to be on. So if it's not those, then it's still the same group of people. So instead of rather than making more options to clear something, this time they excluded viable options. They reduced the possibility of the existing option in order to increase the playtime with a different option. So you didn't increase in accessibility. There was a substitution and a displacement in accessibility. Live service games over their life, when they continue to grow, like when they continue to mature, the accessibility goes up. So that is where most of the resources are dedicated to. And as the resources go up, there are more potential buyers. So the rarity that you're going after is reducing accessibility. So most of this module was well below average. It consistently reduces overall accessibility. The celestial gear reduces accessibility, right, because it's another tier above. And the longer currency play reduces accessibility, because it's already tough to be incentivized to play something knowing that you have no accessibility to a trial or the celestial gear. That's reducing accessibility. Incentives are not incentives if they aren't even in demand, right? And that is the nature of this module. It's probably the most negative I've been for some time now. When a live service game flourish, with every incremental module expansion, they include something that is more and more accessible. PSO2 NGS, when 2.0 rolled around, they introduced a new feature that anyone can use to any degree. Those who use that feature to a high level produce magnificent products that then is apparent to everyone else who's accessible. And that was the creative space. The creative space was introduced, so if you do really well in it, everyone has access to that. So the person that does really well in it are have presence. Celestial gear does not have presence. When you get your fancy little celestial gear, only the people in that closed circle notices it. It doesn't incentivize anyone else to get it. Introducing features and things where, yes, if you do it really well, everyone else may notice because they all also have accessibility to it. That's live service. That's the thing that keeps live service going, in my opinion. And that's also the thing where you market to make money off of, right? People demand something because other people, you give them the impression, you try to encourage them like, oh, you could also be that person. And that person's thing is very apparent to other people. What one group desires does not reflect the demand for it. So say like Hearthstone, right? Hearthstone Battlegrounds. There are really, really good people who play Battlegrounds that are inaccessible, as in you don't compete with them. But everyone who plays Battlegrounds has an accessibility ability to interact with all, I said ability twice, to interact with all the mechanisms, and they can succeed or not succeed. And all the people who are succeeding really well are obviously highlighted because there are a lot of people who have accessibility to that. That's not in the design in this game. When I see Celestial, that's not it. Celestial is accessible by a singular mean that those who are already have access to that will see it rationally as working well or working as intended. Anyone outside of that doesn't exist because they no longer empathize, in my opinion. Those people will unlikely, not a bad or good thing, if you spend most of your time in a privileged space, you're not expected to be empathizing with a non-privileged space. And then I, for instance, wouldn't know how it feels to have that accessibility. Like, oh, okay, that's new celestial gear. All right, let's go hit up my buds, and then organize. Hey guys, did you check it out? Oh, I can't wait to get access to this gear. Like, when are you guys gonna be on? Let's do the two week early like farm for it. The moment I think about doing that is the moment that I think, oh yeah, right, module 3 made everything harder and longer, or harder by artificially making it longer and more playtime, right? And then someone else would come by and say, well, I'm okay with it because I already got it. I did it about 100. I put in the time. And that's just to keep the value of the gear up. Okay, for whom? Like, does it make you feel better because you have something that's rare, and so no one else, it's so rare, or like it's rare enough that all the people that you would want, like, if you're okay with only knowing that you yourself has a rare piece of item, all the power to you. I personally like the idea that if I show something and I show how to get it, that other people would see, oh man, I can get it too. We should try to work together and get it. That's not the case here. I think that's probably the theme of this module. Pretty much most things are pass. Like, okay, well, I need people and things like this, and I need this to do this, and oh, hey, look, they think it's that everyone will look at rare things like it's the hot thing. I don't think so. You have a low barrier. But let's look on the little bright side. right? I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt. I think this is the first go around, maybe like the first transitioning, and there might be a loss of communication or something, or maybe it's the beginning of a very fruitful upturn. I think there's a change of leadership. So from the feedback, or maybe the lukewarm interaction of other people, I actually do believe that whatever I said here is of the minority voice. I don't think most people who play Neverwinter, especially at that level, the level where they would log in, run 100 times, and then occasionally play other games, most of those people are playing solo games, in my opinion. And when they come to play something that is remotely multiplayer, is probably something like this, because they invest a lot of time in order to get that gear. You invest a proportionate amount of time. So for me, I'm coming from a very different aspect, right? I play games that focuses on PR, appearance, and their community building, right? When I play Like a Dragon game, that's a single player game, but the community itself is incredibly interconnected, because whatever's shown in the game is incredibly accessible, and the accessibility breathes for itself. When you play a game and you talk about the game, it's lots of people are willing to talk about it. It's increasing in accessibility. Now, if we go to the realm of live service games, average live service games like 7 out of 10, they have a lot of comments. Lots of people dislike it, lots of people like it, lots of people are it's a mixed bag, because it's incredibly accessible. Lots of conversations, lots of talks, lots of feedback, right? That's kind of number, if you will, the number of things. This game is an exclusive club. There are pros and cons to that. If it's an exclusive club and you keep catering to the exclusive club, you get better and better feedback, or consistent, more and more favorable feedback, because it's going back to its roots of being harder and hardcore. So it caters and become more and more niche. So is that great for live service? No, I don't think it is. Unless you're okay with, like, unless you have an angel investor or something, hey, we make D&D, so angel investor will continue to use this as a platform to cater to a minority group that continues to give more and more possible positive feedback. They're more and more likely to be loyal to you and defend all the rationales that are favorable, because that does happen when you do a niche game. It's kind of like when Dark Souls 1 came out. Initially, it was an incredibly niche game, and it formed a very strong, alliance and loyalty. And that then was used to leverage how FromSoft's design becomes more and more casual forward and reaches a larger audience, which created more friction, right? That's because diversity leads to alternative opinions. I spent more time having fun discussing about the controversies and different things that happen in a game, not more so a game like, oh, they're doing business as usual and they're double downing on the exclusivity of their game, and somehow exclusivity drives demand. I'm not an expert in finance or economics or anything, but I think I know enough to think that that is really backwards. That you think pumping rarity and pumping a higher threshold in both ways, in luck and forward, pumping the need for higher legacy and nepotism, while at the same time also pumping the need for greater consistency and habit forming, is a double negative. It's a double whammy. Not only do you make it harder for people to form habits because it's just less accessible, you also, in my opinion, throw in designs that make it far and far more exclusive, without any demand for it, right? Something that is incredibly exclusive can be any price, and it can be the most valuable thing an exclusive person can own, but it would have little to no value to anyone else outside that sphere. So yes, you can go and hoard your fantastic celestial gear and show it off to yourself and your closest friends, and that could be sufficient to be really happy for the people who are playing. I don't think publishers and developers would think that's the first priority. Like, hey, look at our game where most people don't even see the product or even engage or talk about the thing that I made. I think that's probably one of the most down side of things, but I'm projecting now. So excuse me for projecting. When I think about covering something and making something or recording something, I like to think that I'm doing some effort to be more approachable, right? Accessible. And even then, I can definitely feel the desire to want to stay true to the self, which I do. The stuff that I record is less approachable. Doesn't mean I don't try to be more approachable over time. It's approachable enough. So the question I ask myself when I'm thinking about Dika moving forward is, are they instructed to, is this enough? Is this approachable enough? If it is, then the next module is going to be the same commentary. I will probably say the same thing. Like, it's inaccessible. Like, I play this game, here it is. If you find that you have the willpower to be part of the country club, then you blast your way into the country club. So yeah, that's a wrap for my thoughts. I can't really talk too much about the other things. I like the Thayan backdrop, so I imagine they're going to double up on the Thayan backdrop unless they completely abandoned it entirely because of change of leadership. That's will remain to be the wild card. Generally things come in pairs, if not trilogies. So I like this environment. I like the red and the gloominess. But ultimately, if the design stays the same, I'll probably say less and less about it, right? At some point, I actually look forward to seeing this game rest in peace. Like, have a glorified final voyage and just go big, you know, to launch the most controversial, divisive, augmented subsystem and give the game the last like Hail Mary pass, right? I think a slow death is very poetic, but a Hail Mary pass makes for great PR, or like even bad PR is good PR kind of situation. So I look forward to seeing. I will probably cover next module, and I want to see if it's a Hail Mary pass or a slow death that they're going for. And I'm not talking about slow death in the manner of doomsaying. I'm saying slow death because it's a natural course in life. It's a natural course for human interest. So when something persists long enough, there is a natural end to it, right? And I usually either you go out with a bang, for me personally, embracing the whole internet culture, go out with a bang, or you can embrace the slow, steady continuation. But next module will definitely determine if it's one or the other, in my opinion. And if it's the slow, steady death, I will continue to slow and steady do less, kind of in natural course. I've done way less than the last 3 modules in talking about this because there's just nothing there. Like, there's, when I mean nothing, I mean there's a lot less there. So much like this, I'll wrap it up with my final like rating, if you will. I typically do a rating for fun. It's a 3 out of 10. This module was a 3 out of 10. It's coming from a 7 out of 10 for Mount Hope now. 7 or 6. It's a 3 out of 10. This is far below average. It's one of the least things. I don't even have much to talk about. Like, I can't even. I think the environment's great. And that's all that's usually what I find myself saying when I'm playing. I think the environment's great. I think the layout is fantastic. How they utilized all the arts in it, and then the tie-in with Among Thieves. That's what I talked about. And outside of that, I think nearly being super direct, nearly either all the things are forgettable or not forgettable. They are unforgettable, but not for the reason, not for a favorable reason. They are unforgettable because you do them so frequently, like incredibly frequently, that is very hard to forget them on this side of things. And then the trial is non-existent. I don't even consider, like, I played an advanced version of it maybe once, and then it comes up in MSQ. It's so irrelevant, in my opinion, personally, that I don't even have much to say about it. There are neat components and mechanics of it. So 3 out of 10. I don't see it as out of the realm of possibilities. I don't think that's overtly negative. I think it's not a skip. You have ups and downs, right? Ups and downs. So this would be one of the down moments. The last 3 were up moments. So eventually you kind of get into a lull, and that's it. So I don't know if I have any other positive outlook other than I look forward to seeing what module 32 is going to be like. Fingers crossed. I think at minimum, I would love to see them advertise a new subsystem. A new subsystem makes it so that anyone who's playing the game, and it's a new subsystem that is accessible from level 1, or it's a ubiquitous universal subsystem change, so that all the players in the game have to learn it or do it or participate in it in some way. If it's a mechanical change, that would be even better. You know, like subsystems can be as trite as it's a new gear piece slot or something. Alternatively, if it impacts gameplay, embrace the division, right? Hail Mary pass. Change the mechanical thing so that everyone is interested in adapting to a new one. Some people are going to get really angry and not be interested, or be very angry with the subsystem change, but I would wager that they will still just begrudgingly participate in the subsystem change. So here's to hoping in another 3 or 4 months, the first advertisement is, hey guys, we're switching up 2 or 3 core mechanical changes as a Hail Mary pass to brighten everyone's interaction with everything. The gear will all be affected by the subsystem change. Otherwise, realistically, it's probably going to be business as usual, and I will try to cover that and then decide then. Alright folks, that's a wrap for today. That's a wrap for Neverwinter for the next 3 or 4 months. I don't actually know what their timetable is for module 32. So if you're going to watch this later, thank you. As always, feel free to follow along. This game is free to play with all the caveats that I mentioned up to this point. So feel free. If you don't think I'm correct, or like if you disagree with me, or you think I'm not entitled to that opinion, play the game, demonstrate it, talk about it, And you're more than free to welcome to share your experiences, exchange ideas, brainstorm ideas, even talk about new subsystems that you would like to be added in the next module, right? So until module 32, stay safe, stay happy, play this and something else in the meantime, right? And I guess I'll see you guys in module 32, right? Take care. Bye now.